Welcome to the Benzino Podcast, where we're calling a spade. Great to be here with you guys today. Pinch me, I must be dreaming. Did Cathy Engelbert just give Caitlin Clark credit? And did she not only give Caitlin Clark credit, but she didn't list off 15 other players as well? Yeah, Caitlin Clark is the huge part of our success. Not Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and Paige Beckers. Not Caitlin Clark, Asia Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, Brianna Stewart. Not Caitlin Clark, Aneka Ogumike. Caitlin Clark is a huge part of our success. Caitlin Clark is a huge reason.
She said it live, no filter, no PR team, just the raw truth that the WNBA front office has been trying to avoid for an entire season. Cathy Engelbert realized she couldn't lie to Pat McAfee's face. The silence that followed her admission was deafening. Careers were about to end, and the narrative that the league had spent millions to build was evaporating in real time. For months, we have seen the commissioner weasel out of giving credit where it is due, but in front of a man who doesn't play by the rules, she finally broke. It was a moment of pure survival, and the fear in her eyes told the entire story of a league that is terrified of its own success.
Caitlin Clark is a huge reason as to why this transformational deal was done. Pinch me, I must be dreaming. Did Cathy Engelbert turn the corner? Doubtful. But you know what they say, folks. Even a dead clock is right twice a day. Like the video, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribe to the channel, and hype the video. I would greatly appreciate it. Let's take a look, see what Cathy Engelbert had to say in case you missed it.
Because our season's shorter, now we'll be able to play up to 52 games over the life of this agreement. When I came in, I think we were playing 32. So
For months, we have heard the same tired song and dance. Every time Caitlin Clark's name comes up in a positive light, the league feels this desperate, almost pathological need to list off an entire roster of other players to balance the narrative. But something was fundamentally different this time. When Engelbert stepped onto the Pat McAfee show, the usual corporate filters vanished. She didn't dare pull the Caitlin and the rest routine. She knew exactly who she was talking to. Pat isn't your average reporter looking for a safe soundbite. He is a guy who brings massive receipts, and Cathy looked like she was staring down a high-speed freight train.
So what happens when you get these people talking in front of media who aren't paid shills? When you get them talking to media who aren't just going to bend over and listen to the lies that these people push forth. This was on the Pat McAfee show. In case you guys aren't aware, Pat McAfee, a bit of a renegade. Calls a spade a spade. If Cathy Engelbert was to maybe weasel in a few names there's probably a small part of her mind that says, man, he might actually call me out on this.
We have to remember the legendary 5-minute PowerPoint presentation Pat delivered earlier this year. He laid it all out with brutal surgical honesty. The attendance records, the skyrocketing ratings, the sold-out jersey sales, it all pointed to one single individual. He proved with objective data that the transformational growth wasn't a group effort, it was a Caitlin Clark phenomenon. Cathy Engelbert definitely saw that presentation. She knew that if she tried to gaslight Pat with the usual league talking points, he would dismantle her entire argument in front of millions of viewers without blinking an eye. It was a checkmate before the game even started.
Man, he might actually call me out on this. If you guys remember, during Caitlin Clark's rookie season, Pat McAfee did a 5-minute PowerPoint presentation speaking on how it's only because of Caitlin Clark. The growth is only because of Caitlin Clark. The attendance is only because of the viewership is only because Caitlin Clark. Cathy Engelbert, I'm sure, saw that. I'm sure Cathy Engelbert heard about that. So now that she's in front of Pat McAfee, she's picking her words wisely because she knows Pat McAfee will call her to the carpet. Whoa, Cathy, what do you mean because of Angel and Paige? What are you talking about, Cathy?
It is a truly rare sight to see a high-level executive actually choose their words with this much visible caution. You could practically see the gears grinding in her head as she navigated the conversation. She was desperately avoiding the trap of her own making. Usually, she is incredibly quick to credit everyone from Angel Reese to the bench warmers for the league's new success. But in front of McAfee, she finally gave credit where it was actually due. It wasn't because she suddenly wanted to be honest, it was because she had no other choice. The shill media wasn't there to protect her this time, and she was all alone on that screen.
Pat, you're really our only draw here. You're really our only personality. We'll kind of let you do your own thing. This is Cathy Engelbert, scared shitless to gaslight in front of a person who will call her out. You see that, shill media? You see that? The truth comes out when they know you won't just kiss their ass the entire time. Let's take a look at some of the reactions. Why didn't she mention every player from the W in that spot? This Sheila Johnson meme, the owner of the Mystics, this is going to go down in history as one of the great WNBA memes. Sounds like a job.
This wasn't just another interview, it was a total reckoning for the league office. Many are calling this being scared straight, and it is hard to argue with that assessment. When you are dealing with a renegade like McAfee who isn't on the league payroll and doesn't need their permission to exist, the rules of engagement change. You cannot weasel your way out of the truth when the person asking the questions has more leverage than you do. If she had tried to diminish Clark's impact by bringing up a dozen other names, Pat would have called her to the carpet right then and there. He would have asked for the data, and we all know exactly what that data says.
Great WNBA memes. Sounds like a job-saving move. Cathy needs to go. Someone had to talk with her. Did Adam talk with her? I just want her to stop pretending she's been doing all she could do for this league and quit taking credit for things that they were forced to finally provide because of the media's focus on Cece. No, Cathy is doing everything that she could do for this league. The league was about to fall into pieces. Now Caitlin Clark came and revived the league, brought it out of the basement into the forefront, but Cathy's been doing all that she could do for this league. So, you know, to think she didn't mention another name alongside Clark.
Pat McAfee is one of the few people at ESPN who genuinely doesn't care about the corporate narrative or the ruffled feathers of league executives. He is simply too valuable to the network to lose, which gives him the ultimate freedom to say what others are far too afraid to even whisper. When he talks about the Caitlin Clark effect, he is backed by massive numbers that do not lie. Ratings are up hundreds of % only when she is on the screen. Arenas are sold out only when she is in the building. Cathy knows this reality. She knows that Pat knows this reality, and that shared knowledge created a very uncomfortable atmosphere for a commissioner used to being coddled.
Hey, Stephanie White, what do you think about Caitlin Clark? Oh, you know, Caitlin Clark's great, but what about all these other players that came before her? It's like, Stephanie, we didn't ask you that question. What are you doing? Are you Caitlin Clark's coach, or are you a shill for the rest of the league? What is it? Interesting. She's just acting behind the scenes. She be hating CC. Don't know how this woman is still commissioner of the league. She's going to say what she got to say to keep her job at this point, but the North remembers, oh, she's out of here. She's leaving. I don't think she, I think she's already aware that she's not going to be sticking around the WNBA for a while. Maybe, but it'd also be insane not to.
So the big question remains, did Cathy Engelbert finally turn a new leaf, or was she just playing world-class defense? The skeptics are leaning heavily toward the latter. It is incredibly hard to believe that someone changes their entire leadership philosophy overnight. It is much more likely that she is a master of reading the room and realized her survival depended on a pivot. She knew that a woke PR answer would get her incinerated on that specific platform. She had to act like she has been on the Caitlin Clark train all along, even though the fans remember exactly how the league office treated their biggest star during the darkest moments of her rookie season.
Clark her props for literally turning the WNBA into what it is today without mentioning Angel Reese, A'ja Wilson, Paige Beckers. There is hope for Cathy. I thought this was an April Fool's joke. Now, this whole entire interview, Cathy Engelbert saying nice things about the league, saying nice things about the player, outclassing Defisa Collier, outclassing all the players that went out in the media and publicly trashed her. Cathy Engelbert's just a different type of than Defisa Collier. She's not just going to drag the players through the mud just to drag them through the mud. It's not her spot, but again, she just isn't.
The internet is absolutely not buying this sudden change of heart. Comments are pouring in from every corner of the sports world, calling this a blatant job-saving move. People are exhausted by the pretending and the forced narratives. They want a commissioner who leads with genuine honesty, not someone who only speaks the truth when they are cornered by a former NFL punter on a live broadcast. The North remembers, as they say. They remember the deafening silence when Clark was being physically targeted on the court. Seeing Cathy finally give Clark her props feels like a clear case of too little too late for a lot of the most loyal fans. This situation highlights a massive systemic problem in sports media today. Most outlets are essentially acting as paid shills for the leagues they cover. They will not ask the hard questions because they are terrified of losing their precious access to the locker rooms. But McAfee is built differently. He has constructed an empire that doesn't rely on the WNBA's approval or their marketing department. That independence is what allowed this truth to finally come out in the open. It shouldn't take a renegade personality to get a commissioner to acknowledge the obvious, but that is the sad reality of the media landscape we are currently living in. There is an old saying that even a dead clock is right twice a day, and that seems to be the exact vibe of this interview. Just because Cathy said the right thing for once doesn't make her the hero of this story. She has been at the helm while the league was, by many accounts, falling into pieces behind the scenes. It took a generational, once-in-a-lifetime talent like Clark to revive the brand and pull it out of the basement of sports ratings. Now, the executives are trying to take credit for the house being built, even though they didn't provide the materials until they were absolutely forced to by overwhelming public pressure and demand. The most telling part of the entire exchange was who she did not mention. In almost every other interview she has given this year, it is a laundry list of players. Paige Bulders, Aja Wilson, and Brianna Stewart all get shoehorned into the conversation to avoid any hint of favoritism. But on the McAfee show, that list magically disappeared. It was Caitlin Clark, and it was period. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the league knows the difference between a star and a supernova. They just usually refuse to admit it because they are terrified of bruising the egos of the rest of the players in the league who aren't moving the needle. Cathy Engelbert understands the PR battle better than almost anyone in the business. She is not going to go out and publicly trash players like Napheesa Collier, even when those same players are coming for her job and her reputation. She is playing a very long, very calculated game, trying to maintain a professional facade while the walls are closing in around her. But that facade is starting to crumble under the weight of reality. When you have to choose your words this carefully just to survive a 15-minute interview without being called a liar, you have already lost the trust of your core audience. The fans can see the fear. Being on a show based in Indianapolis adds another intense layer to this drama. This is Caitlin Clark's backyard now, and the rules are different here. Pat McAfee is the undisputed king of indie sports media, and he is fiercely protective of the talent in his city. If Cathy had come onto his turf and tried to downplay the impact of the Indiana Fever's biggest star, the fallout would have been nuclear for her career. She was essentially walking into the lion's den, and she knew she had to bring a massive peace offering in the form of some long overdue respect for the person actually generating the revenue for her league. Let's talk about that new media deal everyone is buzzing about. Cathy loves to use the word transformational to describe it, but let's be real for a second. Without number 22, that deal simply does not happen at that price point. The networks are not paying for the growth of the league in general. They are paying for the millions of new eyes that follow Caitlin Clark wherever she goes. Pat knows this, the fans know this, and finally, for one brief moment on national television, the commissioner acted like she knew it too. It was a rare moment of clarity in a vast sea of corporate gaslighting that has defined the season. The wounds from Clark's rookie season are still incredibly fresh for many fans. The way the league handled the excessive physicality and the targeted negative narratives was frankly embarrassing to watch. To see the commissioner now trying to pivot and act like Clark's biggest cheerleader is a very hard pill to swallow for the people who were there from day one. It feels calculated and hollow. It feels like an executive who realizes they almost let their biggest golden goose get chased away and is now desperately trying to make amends before the next season kicks off and the pressure from the owners intensifies even further.
What makes Pat McAfee so effective in these situations is his total no-nonsense approach. He doesn't use the flowery, protective language of traditional sports broadcasters. He talks like a fan, which is exactly why the fans trust him more than the league-approved reporters. When he says Clark is the only reason the WNBA is relevant on a national scale right now, he actually means it. And when he is sitting across from the person in charge of that league, he does not back down. That energy is infectious. And it forced Cathy to abandon her usual script and actually engage with the reality of the situation for once.
Some insiders are calling this a pure survival tactic. With rumors swirling about her future as commissioner and a possible exit, Cathy needs to prove to the board that she can handle the Caitlin Clark era. If she cannot even acknowledge the reality of Clark's impact on a major platform, she is useless to the owners who want to capitalize on this massive momentum. This interview was a high-stakes test, and she barely passed by the skin of her teeth by finally dropping the act. But the question remains, is this a permanent change in direction or just a temporary mask worn for the sake of surviving a specific, hostile audience? The transcript mentions how refreshing it is to see someone who won't just bend over and listen to the lies. The WNBA has been protected by a thick defensive shell of media members for a very long time. These people view any form of criticism as a direct attack on the league itself, but McAfee doesn't care about those unwritten corporate rules. He will light up the commissioner with the facts because he is not part of that protective club. That is why this interview felt so fundamentally different from anything we have seen on CNN or in the pages of the New York Times. It was raw, it was real, and it was honest. The reactions to this interview have already become legendary in the sports world. The memes of team owners and the skeptical looks from fans are flooding every social media platform. It shows just how much of a massive disconnect there is between the league office and the people who actually buy the tickets and watch the games. When the commissioner says something that sounds even remotely like the truth, it is treated as a minor miracle by the community. That is a sad state of affairs for any professional sports organization, but it is the deep hole that Cathy Engelbert has dug for herself over the last few years of leadership. There is a powerful sentiment among the fan base that the North remembers. They will not forget the years of neglect or the way Clark was treated when she first entered the league with a target on her back. One single interview on the Pat McAfee show does not erase a long history of questionable leadership and biased narratives. People are waiting for more than just words. They are waiting for real, tangible action. They want to see the league office actually lean into the Clark phenomenon, rather than trying to pretend it is just one of many small improvements they have made through their own corporate brilliance. The truth has a very funny way of surfacing when the pressure gets high enough. You could see the internal struggle in Cathy as she tried to balance her corporate responsibilities with the undeniable reality of the situation. She knew that any attempt to gaslight Pat would be met with immediate public pushback. It was a high-stakes game of chicken, and for once, the executive was the one who flinched first. She had to give in to the reality of the numbers. She had to say the name without any qualifiers. She had to admit that Caitlin Clark is the high-powered engine driving this entire bus into the future. As we look toward the future of women's basketball, the league is at a major crossroads. They can continue to try and manage the narrative through forced inclusivity and shared credit, or they can finally embrace the massive star power that has been dropped into their laps. This interview might be the first real sign that the message is finally sinking in at the highest levels. If even the commissioner is scared straight by the facts, there might actually be hope for the WNBA after all. But it is going to take more than one honest conversation to fix the deep-seated issues that exist within the league's front office. At the end of the day, this wasn't just about a single interview, it was about the undeniable power of the truth. When you have a platform as large as the Pat McAfee show and a talent as undeniable as Caitlin Clark, the corporate filters will eventually fail. Cathy Engelbert didn't suddenly become a different person. She just realized she couldn't win a fight against the data. This moment should serve as a wake-up call for everyone in sports media. The fans want honesty, they want the stars to be recognized for their impact, and they will no longer settle for anything less than the unvarnished reality of the game.